My name's Troy Taylor, and you're yeah.
You fucked it up
Yeah,
already.
I'm drunk. All right.
You have to start it off right. You have to be like, I'm Troy Taylor, and then I'll be like, and I'm Andrew Jensen, and we're Toy Soup, and you're listening to the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Oh, maybe you should start it off then. Maybe you should start it off, and then I'll say Andrew Jensen, because, okay. You got to
You want me to start it?
Yeah.
Okay. I got this. My name is Andrew Jensen.
And I'm Troy Taylor.
And we're Toy Soup.
Yeah.
And we're...
Yeah, you're drunk too. Yeah,
I'm not.
You're drunk too.
We're supposed to do this together.
All right, okay. Oh, wait, we want to say it at the end together?
No. We want to say we're Toy Soup together.
Oh, okay.
And then one of us says, you're listening to the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
You got to say that. But I'll say Toy Soup with
right?
you.
Is this working for you? Is this sexy?
It's delicious.
Our two
All right.
dudes.
What's up? My name is Troy Taylor.
And I'm Andrew Jensen.
And we're Toy Soup. Yeah, we did it. Oh, I fucked it up.
whoa,
I fucked it up. I'm sorry. Okay.
All right.
My name's Troy Taylor.
And I'm Andrew Jensen. And we're Toy Soup. And you're listening to the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Yeah.
You know what's going to be awesome about that is I should just include all of the fuck ups as
the promo.
Yeah.
We're like, you fucked it up. I'm drunk as shit right now.
You're drunk too.
Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to a special episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name is Chris Hollifield. I am your host. Welcome to the SLC Comedy Carnivale edition, where I talk to 4 comedians that were at the SLC Comedy Carnivale that just recently happened here in Salt Lake City. 5 days of comedy, really good time. I had a great time. I had a great time talking to these comedians, finding out their story, finding out what they like about Salt Lake, what they think about the festival. It was just a really good time. Many thanks to Christopher Stevenson and Andrew Jensen for putting on this event. Before I do go any further in this episode, I want to mention that this episode was brought to you by the Urban Lounge. They're located at 241 South, 500 East, right in downtown Salt Lake City. You can hit up their website at theurbanloungeslc.com. You can find out about all of the bands that are going to be playing there very soon, so make sure to check out the website. This episode, I sat down with 4 comedians, like I mentioned: Whitney Streed, David Nieker, Arthur Carter, Geoff Grant, 4 great comedians that were at the SLC Comedy Carnivale. I sat down with each one of them individually, found out their story, found out what they like about Salt Lake City, and just found out about them as individuals. So join me now as I talk to those 4 comedians, and thank you so much for listening to another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Just podcasting stuff, and I'm just like, I don't even know what equipment you need, but it's like nothing. Like,
yeah,
it's so
it's pretty. I mean, as a comedian, it would seem like doing a podcast. I mean, it seems like a lot of comedians are doing podcasts.
Totally. Well, comedians love to talk about themselves, so I think it's a perfect.
Well, who doesn't like to talk about themselves, though, right? I mean, it seems like
uninteresting people.
Yeah.
People with a sense of privacy. I don't know any of those people anymore.
Who's private anymore? I mean,
right.
you got Facebook and Twitter and all that. Well, we're recording, so
cool.
That usually scares people a little bit, though. So we're recording. Why don't you just kind of say your name and where you're from? Where
cool. My name is Whitney Streed, and I am here from Portland, Oregon.
Is this your first time to Salt Lake City?
No, I was here twice before. I came here once when I moved to Portland. I moved across the country, and we drove through Salt Lake City, and so we stopped here for like the afternoon. And then I came a couple years ago, and Cody Eden set up some shows for me and a couple other guys from Portland.
So you've performed in Salt Lake already, actually.
Just at like Small Potato. I can't remember
where it was at.
I can't remember the name of the place. I feel like it was called Moe's, but like it might not.
There was a place, Moe's, many years ago. So it must have been quite a few years ago.
It was like 3, I think. 3 years.
And now, is this your first festival that you've done in? I mean, this is the first probably festival you've done in Salt Lake.
Yes, certainly.
But have you done other festivals around the country at all?
Yeah, I've done the Bridgetown Festival, which is in Portland.
Okay.
I've done that a number of years. I've performed in it and helped like do organizing stuff in it a lot of times. And then I went to the Comedy and Burrito Festival, but I was just doing stage management. I wasn't performing, and I did Seattle Sketch Fest last year. So
is it different, like as a comedian, yourself who's traveled around? Is it different to go to city at all? Have you noticed?
Yes.
Is there different vibes or what?
Everywhere there's different vibes. Like in different.
What's the vibe in Salt Lake like?
I haven't quite put my finger on it. It's not You expect it to be kind of conservative in a generalized way, and it's totally not. Like,
is it tougher to swear here when you like to say a swear word?
I don't think swearing is as probably. I don't swear that much, but I have a lot of like. I don't know. Like, I don't feel like I can work clean, not because I curse or anything, but because my topics are so like they're not the things that people think are clean.
What are you know?
I talk a lot about gender and like sex and sexuality and stuff, and then I have all these like anarchist and like political jokes, and I'm like, maybe I'm just gonna save these for later. Like, I'm not knowing. I don't think they're gonna fly here, but yeah, and I have a lot of jokes about drugs. So like,
and you don't think people in Salt Lake do any drugs? Or
I don't know. I just don't know how to broach it. Like, like sometimes people do things that they don't want you to talk about it. You know. Yeah. So, but
so what got you? I mean, even interested? Let's back up a little bit there, if you don't mind. I mean, what got you interested in even doing stand-up comedy? And how long ago was that?
5 years. I started about 5 years ago. It'll be 5 years in like January. So. It was real random. Like, I moved to Portland and I had like a stay-at-home job that was really good. And so it gave me like a bunch of free time. And I was just like, I'm supposed to be making something. Like, what is it? And I couldn't figure it out. Like, I was trying to write and I couldn't write anything. And I'm like, well, if you can't write anything, you're not a fucking writer. Like, and like, so I'd seen an open mic.
Like, what kind of stuff were you writing? Just stories?
I was trying
was it
nothing.
Comedy or just
it wasn't comedy.
Journaling?
Yeah, it was more. I was like trying to write stories, but they weren't happening. Like, it wasn't. There was nothing coming out, and so I like couldn't find a way in.
Yeah.
And so I had seen an open mic once. And I mean, obviously I watch stand-up and I like stand-up. I've seen professional stand-up, but like I saw an open mic once at a place when I lived in Washington D.C. at some point before I lived in Portland. And I'd gone like with a friend to see a mutual friend, and I just had thought, oh, I could clearly do that. And then like never gave it another thought. And then I moved to Portland and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And then I was just like, kind of like, maybe I should try stand-up comedy one day. And then like I woke up this one morning and I was like, I put on this outfit and I was like, oh, I should wear this when I do stand-up for the first time, which was very weird. I don't really think like that at all about clothes. And so then by the end of the day, I was just like, no, you have to do it today. This is the day. You have to go tonight. And so like I sat in a parking lot and wrote a bunch of jokes down and went to this open mic. Before
you went to the open mics, you didn't even like prepare for days or weeks or anything?
No preparation, like an hour's preparation in a parking lot, panicking. I'm just like, I'll just write jokes. I'll just write some jokes.
And did you go by yourself or did you bring friends?
I was all by myself, and I showed up about an hour early and I got wasted. I got so drunk because I was so nervous, and like I didn't even know if I was in the right place for a while. And then I started seeing all these people come in and I'm like, oh, these are the comics, and it was like a very bad night at the open mic. Like it was a real dire. And so I went up, I don't remember, 5th, 6th.
How many people were probably at your first open mic?
Maybe 20, 25. Like there was
so
like
a decent crowd, a decent crowd, but not overwhelming.
Not overwhelming. It was mostly comedians.
But I'm sure it was tough, though. I mean, I'm sure. What did you have? 3 minutes, 5 minutes?
It was like 5. I think it was at the time. It was comedy in Portland has totally exploded in the past few years, but then it was not huge, and so it was like a very small list, and the host wasn't very much of a stickler with the time. But I hardly remember any of my jokes. They were all really dumb, but like, and the jokes that I wrote didn't do terribly well, but like, I made fun of myself for not doing well. And that did like real well. Like it like got genuine laughs that hadn't been happening a lot of the night. Like I did better than a lot of people had to that point. And I just got off the stage and I was like, that was it. That's what I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life. Like,
so you knew at that moment that you have to do stand-up comedy.
I just knew it was. I had never felt like that. Like I've never felt like that certain about anything. Just the certainty of like, oh, this is it. This is how you make things, is with your voice on a stage with a microphone. And like some guy, I met a bunch of people that I now know are like my dear friends in comedy, and someone was like, here's a list of open mics, come out tomorrow. And so I was like, okay, I will. And so I went to an open mic the next night, and there I met someone who was like, I'm running a stand-up comedy class and it starts tomorrow and you should do it for free because you're outspoken. And I was like, oh, okay. So like, just suddenly, like within like 3 days, I'm like, I'm a stand-up comedian. Now this is what I do. Like,
do you think it's something though that you're born with, or do you think you can learn? I mean, it depends. I guess that's probably a tough question.
I mean, you certainly have to learn a lot to do it well. Like, yeah. I mean, like.
So did you listen to a lot of comedy growing up as a child?
I did. I really liked
Were you
stand-up
listening to a lot of stand-up? Like, what were you listening to?
I remember listening to a lot of Jeff Foxworthy and Bill Cosby. Like,
was it big in your family? Did your family listen to comedy, or was it more
I remember
you sneaking the tapes?
No, it was fine. Like that was like road trips with my family. We would like listen to Jeff Foxworthy. I remember distinctly, and I had this like Comic Relief 8 CD that I would listen to like maybe 100 times.
Like with your headphones?
Yeah, just with my headphones, just like listening, just knowing. Yeah, just like, and I remember knowing. I'm like, oh, like she shouldn't have said that there, or like, oh, like he stepped on that laugh. Like I could like feel it. I was like, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And I loved Eddie Izzard, like in college and stuff. Like
who do you listen to now? Like, do you have any favorite?
Maria
comedian?
Bamford, I think, is my number one at this point. Like, she just blows my mind every time. And James Adomian is amazing. And I still love Eddie Izzard. Like, I still really love Eddie Izzard. And
What do you think the most challenging thing has been for yourself doing comedy? Like, what's been the hardest thing for you?
Finding a way to tap into what's honestly funny, as opposed to like just kind of seeing like what do people think is funny, and it's never authentic. Like what's really funny is the stuff that you in your heart think is really funny, because if you're good enough at comedy, you just make the room feel funny. You're like, oh, I think this is funny, you all will think it's funny too, so I have a
Did that take a while to learn how to do that, though?
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure I'm not doing it well still. Like I know that I have a deep, deep, deep need for people to like me. And so like I'm very inclined to just say the thing that they want me to say. And it's really important. I have to like rein myself in a lot and be like, no, like what do you want to say? Like what are you actually trying to say?
Have you had any embarrassing moments on stage?
Except for all of the times that I bombed.
All the times?
I got booked for a show.
Yeah.
Oh, this one time I got booked for this show.
Where was that? Where was the show at?
In Tacoma, Washington, in it was like a working class bar in Tacoma, Washington. And they have like this really long standing, like really well attended comedy night on Tuesdays with, and it's good. It's a good night, but it's like not exactly, it's not people who are interested in a weird queer girl from Portland telling puns. And I got booked to it, I got booked for way too much time, too young. Like I got booked to do like 25 minutes when I did not really have 25 minutes at all of comedy. So like I was just like, well, I'll just do all the jokes I have, and I had no idea how to like bomb gracefully or like to turn a room. And so I just ate it. Like it was like the room was silent and they were enraptured and watching me fail.
And you were just like, I got to get off the stage.
It was real bad. I maybe did half the time I was supposed to do, and I like start my last joke. I hardly ever get heckled because I'm real like, my demeanor on stage is real nice. So if I get hecklers, they're usually like,
do you play off of them at all?
Sometimes, because they're usually helpful hecklers, which are like hard. You can't like shut down a helpful heckler because they're trying to be helpful. You can't be mean to them, and I can't be mean to people anyway very well. But like, so you gotta go back and forth with them. But like someone yelled. It was just like silent, and I start my last joke had to do with me buying a vibrator, and someone just yells, "No one would ever have sex with you," and I'm like, I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna walk off stage. It's gonna be fine. And I like walked like directly to the booker, and he just like bought me a shot, and he's like, these things happen. Like,
so do you tour much? Do you get out of Portland much? I
go to Seattle a lot. Yeah. I've been to San Francisco a couple times. I've been to a couple like different places in Oregon. Like I've been to Eugene a bunch and Salem. I've been to Yakima. And
so what made you decide to come to Salt Lake? Like, why did you come to this festival?
I know people in Salt Lake. Like I came here a couple years ago and did comedy once. And so I know Cody Eden and Levi Rounds and a couple folks. And I really liked, and I love the idea of like a young festival, like Bridgetown is only like 5 or 6 years old, and I've been involved with it since the second year of it starting, and it's so cool to have watched it grow. That but to know it's a very homegrown festival too. Like it's a comic run festival, and I think comic run comedy festivals are like the way to go, because the comedians know what they think they know what's good and funny, and it doesn't become like a weird like gigantic corporate fest. It's like, here's a bunch of cool people who like cool comedy hanging out together. Like, but
you didn't think, okay, well, I mean, you've performed here before, but I was just kind of curious, like coming to Salt Lake, and you're like, okay, What was your first impression? Okay, let's even back up there. I mean, when you first came to Salt Lake, were you like, "Oh, this place is pretty cool"? I mean, were all your misconceptions thrown out the window at all?
To some extent, yes, because I always forget when you think about a place that like feels culturally conservative, like you're inclined to forget that there's always going to be a counterculture. Like there's always going to be,
absolutely.
and like in a place that has a history of like lots of strong conservatism, the counterculture is almost always stronger, like there's a more cohesive sense of like, oh, this is not us. Like we do something else. And like, it's just so, it's not like I was expecting it to be mean, but I didn't expect to meet so many nice people so quickly,
Oh, this city is full of amazing people.
Just so awesome. Like, just like the people I'm staying with, Cody Eaton and his wife, Lisa Baker, are just like that. They're just spectacular. Like, they're just the coolest people, and they're so nice. And they're like, yes, of course, stay with us for days. Like,
as long as you want to stay.
Right.
Have you had a chance to eat out at any restaurants or anything that you know of? Try any of our local food?
I have not. I tried the Starbucks here.
Tried the Starbucks.
Local,
is it better here?
It tasted exactly the same. So so it does it right?
There's a funny story years ago. It wasn't in Salt Lake, but down. I don't know if you're familiar with like Provo and Orem.
Not terribly.
It's a lot more conservative down there. And my uncle came from California and had to teach the person at Starbucks how to make coffee. I guess they were only there for like a week or something. They're like, I haven't made coffee yet, because not a lot of people in Utah.
Right, there's not a lot of caffeine.
I can't drink coffee, but
that's so funny, but I can make it.
yeah. So where would you like to see? I mean, where do you see yourself going with comedy in 5 years? I mean, what would you like to do with comedy?
I don't know, really. Like, I mean, I want to keep doing
just touring, traveling.
I like traveling a lot. I like doing festivals. I like producing shows. I run a weekly in Portland, and I produce other shows too, and I really enjoy that. And I want to sort of figure out how to do that in other places, I think, as much as I want to do. I love doing comedy just by myself, but I also love like running shows. Like I have a show that I co-produce with another guy in Portland that's like it's fake TED Talks. And it's called Chad Chats. And I
like a podcast or what?
No, it's like a stage show where we have people do like PowerPoints, but they're like satirical PowerPoints. And so. Do you listen to like many comedian podcasts? I mean, I know it's really big in the comedy circles. And I listen to a couple of them. Like I listened to Baron Bonds, and I listened to. We just listened on the way here. We drove here, like 13-hour drive from Portland, and we listened to Todd Glass's podcast, the one where he had James Adomian on, and it was killer. Like,
have you ever thought about doing a podcast?
I have. I've thought about doing a podcast actually with a friend of mine that I moved with to Portland, where we talked about like gender issues and stuff, because we get together and we just say really dumb things to each other all the time. And I'm like, people listen to this. Like sometimes people record themselves and send them out on the internet, and everyone wants to listen.
That's the only way I can get through this podcast is I just pretend, okay, nobody's going to listen to this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it's easier with this, with you just like, don't imagine them.
Yeah, don't imagine that they're. So where can people find you online? Do you have a website or Twitter or Facebook or anything like that?
I do have a website. I should have bought the domain name, but I'm cheap and I haven't yet. So it's just streedjokes.wordpress.com. And I'm on Twitter. I'm just Whitney Streed on Twitter.
I might follow you. I might be following you on
Come
Twitter.
follow me.
I don't know. So is there like a...
I believe you are. I feel like you followed me like right before the festival started.
Okay,
I remember I am Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I was trying. Well, thank you. Yeah. So I've been trying to kind of connect with and follow some different comedians. What advice would you give like a new comedian, somebody who's just getting into it?
Expect to fail a lot. That is the only way you can get better. Like. Doing comedy is so weird because all of your drafts, it's not like writing, because like in comedy, all of your rough drafts are on stage for people. Like you can't practice. I mean, you can rehearse your jokes in your head, but you can't practice unless you're in front of an audience. It's not comedy unless it's from an audience, in front of an audience. So like, just don't think that failing means you're doing it wrong. Like, don't think the bombing means you're doing it wrong. Just go fail again, fail better.
Keep picking up and doing it over.
Yeah. Don't quit.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sitting down. It's great. It was great meeting you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't you introduce yourself and where you're from?
All right. My name's Geoff Grant. I'm from Las Vegas.
Is this your first time to Salt Lake City then?
Yes.
And what do you think of Salt Lake? I mean, honestly, be honest.
I've never met so many nice people ever. Like, it's really to the point where it's almost creepy.
What's creepy about it? Like, what's wrong with nice people?
Well, because I'm from Vegas, so I'm just not used to seeing people like that nice and concerned and thoughtful. And
did you grow up in Vegas?
Oh, yeah.
And you never came to Salt Lake? It's only, a 6-hour drive?
Yeah. Actually, I take that back. I did come here once when I was in high school because I was involved with this thing called DECA, like the Future Business Leaders of America type of thing, but I only joined because we got to get out of school about 3-4 times a year to go out of town, and there was that many high school kids unsupervised. I was like, fuck it, I'll join.
Absolutely. So how long have you been doing comedy for?
This is my 5th year.
50. It seems like that's kind of been a number. I've actually, the last few people I've talked to, they've been doing comedy about 5 years. What got you interested in doing comedy? Like, was it a friend or just something you wanted to do or what?
Honestly, the main reason I started doing it, I was unemployed at the time.
So you thought you could make money from it?
Not even that. It was just that cousin of mine used to work at this hookah shop, and they had an open mic there, and I'd go there and I'd watch and hang out and stuff, and I started following them around, going to different shows that they were performing just because I had nothing else to do. And I noticed they would get a couple of free drinks for going on stage, and I just figured, well, shit, I can tell a joke for a beer. Like, that was my sole reason for getting into comedy, because I wanted to drink and I was broke.
So the first time you got on stage, was just an open mic, what, like 3 minutes or 5 minutes?
Yeah, I did like 3-5 minutes. I went up at like 1 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, so the people that was there in the bar didn't give a damn what I had to say. And
so did you know right away this is something I want to keep going with, or did it take a few?
Some people laughed, and I was like, okay, that feels good. And I've always made people laugh, like at work and in class and stuff like that, but being the funny guy in the office is different from being funny on stage to a room full of strangers.
Have you had people like blatantly just tell you that you suck or something, anything like that? Or?
Oh yeah.
And I mean, how do you handle that? Just like brush it off, or?
Yeah, I really don't care. And everybody bombs, and whoever said they've never bombed, you're not a comic.
What's been like the most challenging thing for you being a stand-up comedian?
Mostly at this point, since I'm from Vegas and I perform in a lot of bars and stuff like that, is just getting people to pay attention and give a damn about what I'm saying.
Speaking of Vegas, I mean, what's the comedy scene like? Is there a lot of places to do stand-up down in Vegas?
Yeah, there's a lot of open mics. There's a lot of clubs to get into on the Strip. Is
it pretty easy to get mic time there?
No, on the Strip, it's one of those things where if they don't know who you are, or you have a good referral, you're not getting. And it's just always weird to me, and at least I found this has been true no matter where you go. Comedy clubs aren't very receptive into letting local talent on, which I always thought was weird. Like, you've got a bunch of funny comics in the city that you're in.
That's one thing I love about Salt Lake is they're very supportive of the local comedy scene. You know, that's big props to Salt Lake for that. You know, was it just because the big names coming through, they just want to get them up on stage because they're going to draw
that's what it is. And
so growing up, I mean, did you listen to a lot of comedy then growing up as a young child or?
Yeah, I did like a lot of older stuff, Dangerfield, Pryor, stuff like that. And
Richard Pryor fan.
And the main reason I started listening to Richard Pryor is because my parents would always listen, because they had a bunch of Richard Pryor albums, but they would always shut them off when they see I was coming into the room. Just
because of like his language or...
Yeah. And I was just like, well, what the hell are they hiding? What's so special? And I would just, when they'd leave and go to work, I would sneak and listen to it. And
was it like vinyl or cassette tapes or what?
It was vinyl.
Vinyl on Richard Pryor, going back to the old school.
And I got a lot of... I actually got a little bit of a vinyl collection. And I've got a lot of Richard Pryor's albums on vinyl because I just stole them from my parents. So.
Do you think they even noticed that you took them?
They know I took them.
So speaking of your vinyl, I mean, is it just like comedy vinyl or do you got music vinyl? Or
I got music vinyl too. Just all sorts of random stuff. Just like Sly and the Family Stone.
Do you have any like prized possessions? Like stuff you just wouldn't part with. I mean, there's like some bomb-ass records. I just want to know. I mean, I'm kind of a vinyl nerd myself, so.
Mostly the comedy album, but like I grabbed a lot of new stuff, like Wu-Tang Clan's first album. I grabbed that on vinyl just because I wanted to own it on vinyl. Own a lot of old stuff on vinyl. Just picked up a Rick James album on vinyl.
Nice.
Just because the cover was hilarious, and I know he was high on cocaine when he shot it. Like, that's the only thing I can see when he looking at the cover. Like, he was high as shit when he shot this.
So is your family pretty supportive of you doing stand-up then? Mm-hmm. They come out to your shows or?
Actually, the first time they saw me, it was at a contest I was performing in where George Wallace was the host. And I was more nervous about my parents being there than performing in front of George Wallace.
Do you still get nervous when your family comes out? I mean, you've been doing it 5 years.
Yeah, and I still get nervous when I go on stage, no matter who's there, because I always get nervous. And I kind of feel that's a good thing, because I feel if you aren't nervous, then it means you really don't care.
A few beers, though, kind of calm the nerves, or what? Big drinker?
Yeah. I try not to get too crazy, though, because I went on stage high once, and that was the dumbest idea I've ever had.
I've heard that. I would think being a comedian, like smoking a little herb before you get up there, would really help calm your nerves.
Like I generally don't smoke weed anyway, but this one time I did. It was the dumbest idea I ever fucking, like, in my mind, what I was saying was brilliant and it was hilarious, and all that came out was blah 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 blah.
So were people heckling you ever? I mean,
no, they were just looking at me like, the hell is wrong with you?
They just thought it was part of your joke. So have you had hecklers? I mean, have you had people and you just brush it off? What advice would you give like somebody who wants to get into comedy? Like what would you give them? Like say somebody listening.
If you're really passionate about it, just do it.
Just get up and do it.
Just get up and do it. I don't care what anybody says. You're gonna suck in the beginning. Like you could probably see some splatters and stuff, but if you've been doing it for a while, go back and watch. If you tape yourself or record yourself, look at your earlier work and then look at it now, and you will see the night and day difference. The only thing that's going to make you better is just the practice and getting up there.
Do you record yourself quite a bit now?
More so than I used to.
Is it tough to listen? I've heard that, from people.
Yeah,
to get back.
I can't stand to watch myself on film.
I don't think a lot of people can, though, really.
Yeah, and I hate the sound of my own voice. Like, even doing this podcast, I'm not going to listen to the replay of it because I hate the sound of my voice.
I don't blame you. It's tough. It's tough to... What's been the most rewarding thing for you doing comedy? Like, what do you like? What have you enjoyed the most?
Just the fun I had. Just had a lot of fun with people, meeting people. People telling me, like, if I do a show in a casino or something like that or anywhere, and somebody catches me in the parking lot, or if they recognize me later on down the line in the grocery store or something, and they remember that I was a comic and they tell me how funny I think it was, that's always a great feeling.
Do you get out of Vegas much? I mean, have you gotten on the road at all, or is this kind of like a rarity getting up here to Salt Lake?
It's a rare thing. Like, I actually called out sick to work to be here.
So they don't even know you're in Salt Lake right now?
No, they know I'm in Salt Lake. Like, they denied my vacation time. They knew what it was for, and I was like, well, I'm going. So I called out sick. So
do you have a job when you get home?
Yep.
Well, you hope you have a job.
No, I know I have a job. I got some sick leave left. I know how to work the system. My job's union.
What do you think of Salt Lake? I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit. I mean, have you had a chance to explore it at all?
Oh, did a little bit. It's, like I said, really nice people. It's...
What about eateries? Have you tried any like food places here at all? Just curious what people think of some of the Salt Lake eating.
I went to the heck is the name of that Indian place? The Copper Bowl or Copper Pot, or
was it Copper Onions? Himalayan Kitchen? No, that's.
Yeah, I think it was called the Copper Bowl.
No, that's fine.
It was something copper.
Yeah.
It was Indian food, and
you sure it wasn't just somebody's house?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Somebody just invited you in.
Yeah, I'm also horrible at remembering stuff. So.
No, yeah. That's probably a tough question.
I went to a Chinese place earlier today, and that was pretty good.
So how long have you been in Salt Lake for? When did you get to town?
Got here last night, actually, or yesterday afternoon.
You stay in a hotel, or did you find a place to stay, or what?
Yeah, we're staying in the hotel because part of the festival, we found a deal on the room.
Oh, nice. Is this your first festival that you've done?
Yeah, that's definitely my first. I hope I get a chance to do more. Everybody's been fun as hell. It's been a kick-ass time.
What, are you online? Can people find you, like, on Twitter or Facebook or anything?
You can find me on Twitter and Facebook.
What's your Twitter name?
Needs Insulin.
Needs, just how it sounds.
Yep.
And so follow you on there. You got a website or anything, or not that yet?
No, other than that, got my, you can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/angryblack. I'm really not angry at all. I just figured it'd be funny to say.
You seem like a chill guy.
Yeah, it's...
Where would you like to see yourself in 5 years with comedy?
Probably passed out in a pile of cocaine next to a hooker.
That seems like a dream.
Yeah, like I don't even do coke, but I figure if I get famous, I have to do that. Like I don't want to completely follow in Richard Pryor's steps and light myself on fire freebasing. I don't want to go that far, but I want to have some crazy stories.
I'm Dave Nieker, and I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay, so you're living in Los Angeles. Are you originally from Los Angeles?
No, I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois.
And you just moved out. What took you to L.A.?
Oh, I've been everywhere. You name a place, I've been there. I've lived all over the United States. I left Chicago in 1992. I moved to Seattle. I lived in Seattle for a while. Then I took a job in Miami. Then I went back to Seattle. Then I moved to L.A. And I've also lived in Nashville, Tennessee, but that was before when I was in high school.
Wow. And so, how long have you been doing stand-up for?
I've only been doing stand-up for the last 4 years.
Really?
Yeah, it's going pretty well, though.
And you're enjoying yourself? You get out on
I love it.
You get out on the road much? Or
I'm just starting to get to the point where I can go out on the road. I'm probably going to be doing, I shouldn't say this, never mind, I don't want to jinx myself, about my first paid road gig. Yeah, it's going to happen in January.
And so, but this is your first time in Salt Lake, right?
This is my first time in Salt Lake to perform. I've performed all over Los Angeles and Southern California, in Chicago, and in Las Vegas so far. Oh, and also in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
But never in Salt Lake. You kind of jumped over there. You went from Vegas to Colorado Springs, but you didn't find yourself in Salt Lake.
No.
What do you think of Salt Lake? I mean,
I like Salt Lake. It's beautiful.
But you've been here before, right?
I was here once. I took a flight from Seattle to Los Angeles, and there was a 3-hour layover in Salt Lake because I bought the ticket on Priceline.com. And
you get a good deal.
I got a good deal, but there's 3-hour layover. But it turned out great because that was back when you could put luggage in a locker in the airport. So I stashed my luggage in the locker, and I hopped in a cab, and I came down, and I took a tour of the Tabernacle and the church in the 3 hours I had, and it was extremely interesting. And
what do you think of the city? I mean, honestly, from an outsider's looking in, or not. Well, you weren't looking in. You're here. I mean, you've explored the city. I mean, you've been to the temple. You took a tour of the temple, right? And,
yeah.
I mean, was it pretty cool? Did you enjoy it?
This is the city that answers the question: where are all the white women at?
They're all here.
They're all here.
Yeah.
And, the women here have, especially the young women, have something here that almost no young women in Los Angeles have. Well, not almost none, but a lot of young women in Los Angeles don't have, which is children. A lot of young ladies in Los Angeles are pursuing careers and they give up children until their 30s. And here, they're
starting families at like 18.
Yeah, they're starting families at 18.
Yeah.
Like that was the first thing I noticed at the airport was how many young women with babies, which I guess is more normal.
You don't see that a whole lot in L.A.
Not in L.A.
Yeah.
No.
So this is just your first festival that you've done then, the SLC Comedy Carnivale?
Yeah, it is my first festival.
And I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Are you enjoying yourself?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Having a great time. I think they've done a great job setting it up. They've been really welcoming and helpful to us. And it's great. It's great fun, and I've enjoyed all the comedy. There are a lot of hilarious comics here.
You're kind of getting out and networking with everybody and kind of meeting some new comics.
Yeah.
And
those are people, comics, I think, get you most of your gigs.
Yeah.
They see you, they think you're funny, and they're like, oh, I know that guy. Maybe he can do a set here or like that. So it's good to network.
So let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
You said you've been doing stand-up for 4 years.
Yeah.
What got you interested? I mean, why?
I've wanted to do stand-up since I was a little kid.
And so what finally got you there? Did you just do like an open mic in LA, or what did you do an open mic?
Yeah, actually, what finally got me there and how I got there, two different stories. How I got there was I decided to take a class. I decided that if this was something I was going to do and take seriously, I should probably not go out and embarrass myself, and I would take a class. So I took a class with Jody Miller, who's a very funny comedian. She's a regular at the Comedy Store, and I did well. The class sort of ends with a graduation show where you do 10 minutes. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. I was funny. People thought I was funny. And I just kept going, I think I do pretty well. That's, I'm not trying to.
Well, no, I saw you last night. I mean, I thought your set was great.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
no, and I wouldn't just say that to anybody. But
I appreciate it. I mean, I've been selected for this festival.
Well, I think
I'm
it's
in the World
beard
Series of Comedy next week.
It's the beard,
Thank you.
I tend to bond with bearded men,
The beard is getting me a lot of attention. It's true. It actually got me a role as a Saudi Arabian prince in a movie that's going to film next year.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it's not a big role. I'm going to play a Saudi Arabian prince who gets assassinated while he's in bed with a hooker. And and then they're going to spend the rest of the movie trying to figure out who killed me.
So was someone just talk about it? Someone just comes up to you and they say, I love your beard.
No.
You need to play this role. I mean, I'm hoping maybe my beard will get me out there.
Take some pictures of you with your beard and start submitting for roles. And then they might say, that's the beard we need to get killed.
So you submitted for this role.
For it.
And
yeah.
I mean, is this like just a little independent, or can you talk
it's
about that?
It's an independent film. It's the director's a guy named Mark Toma. He had a film that was released nationally before called Prince of Swine.
And is this kind of your first acting then?
No, when I was in college, when I lived in Chicago, when I was in college, long time ago, I did improv.
What, 3 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, like 3, or put a 0 after the 3. And I studied with Del Close at the Improv Olympic, and I did, and Sharna Halpern, and I did improv. And I also had a featured role in Goldie Hawn's Wildcats. I played Goon number 2. And if you watch,
so you got to work with Goldie Hawn.
Yeah.
Did you meet her, hang out with her, party with her?
I didn't really party. Went bowling one night. The guy that I met and hung out with the most was the guy that played my coach, Bruce McGill, who played D-Day in Animal House.
Seriously?
Yeah. And I had one line. If you've seen the movie, you'll probably remember. I say, "I'm not looking in his jock."
I think I mean, it's been a while since I've seen that.
Yeah, it was filmed in the 80s. I was just in college junior. And then Bruce says, "Then you're off the team." And then I say, "I'm a senior, no problem."
So what do you, I mean, do you like acting or comedy?
I like
doing
comedy
stand-up better.
Yeah. Stand-up's much more fun because I write everything. It's from me. It's how I feel about things. I'm getting my voice out there. And acting is you got to play somebody else. You're living someone else's dream.
They're telling you how to perform, how to act. Yeah. And doing stand-up, you get to get up and just kind of do your own thing.
Yeah. And, well, you have, I mean, there are stand-up, the audience decides what you do, you know. If they're laughing, you can do it. If they're not laughing, don't do it. In acting, the director will decide, but both give you a lot of creative freedom. You know, as an actor, you're allowed to portray things how you think they should be, and then the director sort of fine-tunes that. The comedy, it's all you.
So you mentioned you always wanted to get into comedy. You know, you were a child. You wanted to get in and eventually took classes. But backing up to your childhood, I mean, who were some of your comedians that you looked up to or that you listened to as a child?
I mean, most of them, I guess, are dead now. I think my first big influence was David Brenner because I'm Jewish, he was Jewish, he had my name, and I thought he was funny. I used to love David Brenner, but also, you know, George Carlin. I can remember
what comedian doesn't love George Carlin? No, I mean, you have to give mad respect, you know.
Yeah, and Richard Pryor. When I was like in 7th grade, I used to go to my friend Doug's house, and his older sisters had all the Richard Pryor albums and all the George Carlin albums. We'd listen to them. Also, Cheech and Chong was a big influence early. That's just when I was a kid. Those guys were.
Are you still listening to those guys still today, or who like? Yeah. What are you listening to today?
Not on repeat. These days, I listen to so much comedy, and I watch the famous people like Bill Burr, those who I love. I'm watching those guys for technique now to see how they're doing what they're doing. And I don't listen to the content so much because I don't want to be doing their jokes.
I mean, do you get nervous like when you write a joke? I mean, you say you don't want to take. I mean, how do you know if you took somebody else's joke?
Well, you really don't.
You don't.
Except that the way you try to avoid that is you talk about stuff that's personal to you that nobody else could talk about.
Yeah.
Like I do a lot of jokes about my dad. Nobody else can do jokes about my dad. He was my dad. And so that's how you avoid that.
Or your beard.
Or my beard. Though a lot of people do beard jokes, but they don't do my beard jokes because my beard jokes are personal to me. And so that's how you avoid that. You talk about how you feel about things and your point of view on things instead of just what you think is funny, and you find the humor in that. And then you can relate to it emotionally so it's easier to remember. You don't have to memorize a bunch of stuff. You just have to remember what happened to you or how you felt about something. And then nobody can copy it.
What's been
people can copy it, but it's yours.
The hardest thing for you, like the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome
in terms of stand-up?
Yeah. Have you faced any challenges?
Yeah. The whole thing is a challenge. It's difficult. For me, I think the biggest challenge is, you know, I did the acting and stuff in college, but then I went and got a job and I worked in the business world in advertising, which is it's pretty. Did
you just get fed up with advertising, or do you still do advertising?
I still do it.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I still work. I got fed up with living my life without doing what I always dreamed of. And that, you know, you asked about how did I get started. I took the class, but what made me take the class was I fell off my motorcycle and I was stuck on the couch for like 3 months with a broken leg. And I was in Los Angeles. I hadn't been living there very long. And I thought, man, I basically spent 3 months by myself on the couch. And I thought, man, I got to get out of the house and do something that I want to do for me. And
kind of felt like you were given a second chance a little bit.
Yeah, really did. And like I sort of realized the finiteness of my life. I'm getting older. I'm not a kid anymore. And I thought, man, this is something I got to do before I die. This is my bucket list,
So being an older comedian, do you think it's tougher to get into the scene a little bit?
Because, especially in Hollywood, because, that industry in Hollywood loves youth. And
why do you think that is? Why?
I think, do you really want my answer to that? I think it's because
let's hear it.
That's
what sells?
That's what sells. Yeah, that's the demographic that sells. That young people are watching TV. Old people are at museums. You know what I mean? Those are the people who consume that.
Don't you think there's truth behind that a little bit, though?
Behind what?
The old people at museums. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, I don't understand.
Well, I mean, the idea behind that, as far as, okay, youth are into comedy, the old people at the museum, so old people can't be funny, type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, do you think that there's truth there?
I see what you're saying. Well, I think that I'm proving that
them wrong. You're proving them wrong.
Yeah, but maybe I'm the exception to the rule. There aren't a lot of people who start comedy in their 40s like I did. Rodney Dangerfield did, and he became very successful. But another thing, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but it's something I think about, is that I think people, as they get older and they have families and they settle down and they don't challenge themselves. Well, I don't want to say that, I guess, but they're not as challenged by the world as they were when they were younger. When you're younger, you're figuring things out. Everything seems funny.
Yeah.
And I think when you're older, you just sort of...
You start taking life a little too seriously.
Yeah. Or you're just more... You're not surprised. You've learned how to deal with things. You're not like figuring them out. And I have to sort of go back to that. Sometimes.
You would think that would almost make you a better comedian than starting older. Because you've experienced more.
There's two, what I've heard is that stand-up comedy is I want to get this right. It's a young man's game, but it's an old man's art form. You have to have experience to be funny and to be original and funny. There's a lot of young comics who are sort of all energy and because they don't have the perspective. And that's funny too in its way. But you get a different perspective as you get older.
Now does your...
And there are a lot of older comics, but they've been doing it a long time. There aren't people who start when they're older.
It's not a typical thing. Does your family come out and support you much? I mean,
my family's all over the country, so no, but they support me. They support me emotionally.
They don't think you're ridiculous. Okay, you're living this crazy idea of starting comedy at an older age.
I don't know if that's true or not. They may have become accustomed to my ridiculousness.
And why is that? I mean, do you always just kind of get going with ideas and things?
Well, I mean, they know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they know me, and I think that I've proven myself that I went out in the world and I got a job and I did well at my job and I did fine. And now it's time for me to do something that I want to do, and I think they're supportive of that. I don't have a family. I don't have kids. And so I can take the time to do that. And I think they're okay with it. It's my life.
And would you say, I mean, that I think it's important for people. I think you get kind of caught up in that 9 to 5 in life, and then you just come home and you veg out on the couch. You stop living your dreams and you stop going after your goals. It's safe to say you're happier for doing what you're
10,000% happier. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
And I love doing this, and it's so much fun.
What's been like the overall, what's been the highlight of your stand-up career? Do you have any big moments?
Being selected for the Salt Lake City Comedy Carnivale is one of the highlights. My first festival. It means that...
Because that's a pretty big deal in comedy. It's important to do these festivals and get out there, right?
It's very important, and it's important to me to know that people who aren't in L.A., they aren't the hipsters of L.A., still think I'm funny, that my comedy has a wide appeal. That's very important to me.
Would you like to see yourself coming back to Salt Lake?
I would love to come back to Salt Lake.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to... Well, I guess you've only been here, a day, right? A day. So you didn't... some of the other comedy outlets.
I have a friend who lives here, a guy I used to work with in Seattle, so we went to lunch today. We didn't tour a lot.
Where'd you go to lunch at? Do you remember the name of it or no? Probably not. I was just curious.
It was like a deli.
Okay.
Deli.
Just always curious, where people are eating at these days here in Salt Lake.
And then I spent some time touring Salt Lake's most famous landmark, the Ken Garff building.
What'd you think of that?
I love I just love that it says Ken Garf on the top.
Yeah.
I don't know who he is, but I love the name Ken Garf.
It's a very distinguished name. You know what I mean? So do you listen? I mean, we were talking about like comedy albums. Do you get into podcasts at all? I know that's kind of big in the comedy world. Podcasting.
I haven't been getting into I've not been on too many podcasts.
Yeah.
Almost every comic in LA has a podcast. And
so when are you going to start one up?
So I'm trying to be the guy who doesn't have a podcast, which may not be the smartest move. But right now,
why don't you think it would be this? Well, I mean, I guess it would be the smart move to do a podcast.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Being the guy who doesn't may not be the smartest move. But I'm really concentrating. I sort of have a lot of balls that I'm juggling right now with trying to become a comic, and also in Hollywood that also includes trying to be an actor, and then also working. That I still have to work my day job so I can do this at night.
So you're a busy guy.
Very busy, and I also teach a class.
What do you teach a class about?
My job is I'm an advertising copywriter, and I teach a class on MediaBistro.com called Creative Ad Writing. I teach people how to write good ads.
Would you recommend, what advice would you give a new comic? Do you think you need to take classes? Do you think everybody should take a class, or do you think some people just have the natural? I
don't know. I'm a sort of a class guy. My mom was a teacher. My grandma was a teacher. My brother is very involved in education. I teach a class. So for me, that's an easy way to learn. I was a good student. That's an easy way to learn. And not everybody, it's not for everybody. I think that take a class teaches you what not to do. And you don't spend 8 or 10 years at open mics doing the wrong things.
Yeah.
So I think it's advantageous.
So how can people find you? Are you online at all?
Yeah, I'm online. You can go to my website at www.theinternetiswastingmytime.com. And you can also find me on Twitter at my name, David Nieker, Nieker, and on Facebook the same.
So that really is your website. The internet is wasting my time.
Yes, sir.
That is awesome.
.com.
.com. I mean, that's an awesome domain. I'll get all the links on the show there so people can follow.
Cool.
Do you think that like the Twitters and the Facebook is important in comedy
very important.
to get out there
it's
and
very,
get your
very
name
important.
out there?
Because it's
networking.
It's Facebook and Twitter has become an essential marketing tool in corporate America. All companies, everybody has a Facebook and Twitter. It's just somewhere you have to be. And when agents in Hollywood and people look at you for different, I don't want to say roles because it's not about acting, but for different jobs, sometimes they look at that. Who has more Twitter followers? Who has more Facebook followers? I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter, and I should. But I only have 195 followers right now. And on Facebook, I have over 1,300 Facebook friends. So for me right now, it seems like it's more, I reach more people by being on Facebook. But I know, I have my Twitter and my Facebook accounts linked. I just think, for me, Facebook's a richer environment. You can post more stuff. So I like it a little better, but I have to get more involved in Twitter. And
it's interesting to hear, you get some people like Twitter over Facebook and vice versa. But
you really have to be all of them.
Yeah,
if you're going to do this,
you got to get on Pinterest and all the. But are you headed anywhere after this, or just back home to LA? Or
back home to LA. I'm teaching my class tomorrow, Thursday and Friday. I have shows. Friday and Saturday I have shows in LA. Then Monday I'll be in Las Vegas for the World Series of Comedy.
So you're always out there. You're getting at it, and people follow you on Twitter and Facebook.
I don't have a lot of years left.
You don't have, so you got to get out there. So do you have like a motto or piece of advice you want to leave the listeners? Any words of wisdom from David? I mean, come on, the beard says all. You know what I mean? There's got to be some.
The beard speaks.
The beard speaks. So there's got to be some words of wisdom, or if not, that's fine.
Yeah, I'll give you some words of wisdom. I'm going to give you some advice that my mom gave me. My mom is a great teacher, but she's not great on advice. She's a great shower of how to, but it's not a great advisor. She's not given me a lot of advice over the years. Though as I get older, she gives me more. But this is one of the first pieces of advice she gave me. It's brilliant advice. Never let him shit on your head. That's why you got a mouth.
Introduce yourself and where you're from. You're from Salt Lake City here, right?
Yeah, born and raised.
And your name again?
Arthur Carter.
Arthur Carter. For people listening, we're at the SLC Comedy Carnivale. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah.
Carnivale.
Fancy.
Is this your first festival that you've done?
Yeah, this is my first festival here.
But you've been doing stand-up for quite a while.
Yeah,
here
about 5 years.
About 5 years. Just here in Salt Lake. Have you ventured outside of Salt Lake at all?
Not really. I've really wanted to, but it's tough when you're starting out because you run at a loss when you're doing a show. You're actually paying money to go do a show elsewhere. And so I just really... It's been tough for me to say, okay, we'll pay you $200, but it cost me $300 or $400 to get around. You know what I mean? So
absolutely, yeah. It gets tough to get out there.
Sure.
So what got you even interested in doing stand-up? Like, just got up on an open mic one night, or talk about that a little bit.
I've just kind of always wanted to do it since I was a kid. And, I met Levi Rounds. I don't know if you know Levi.
Yeah, he's actually just standing right behind us here.
I met Levi and I expressed interest, and then, he gave me some time. Him and Christopher, they were doing a show at Moe's. And, they gave, usually a open micer gets about 3 minutes, and they gave me 5 to 7 minutes, which, I got some laughs, and that was enough to just get it, get its hooks into me. And so
how the first time you got up on the microphone, though, I mean, was that, how did you feel? Were you nervous? Were you, I mean, it's probably fair to say you were.
Oh, I was drunk, but
you were drunk.
Oh,
Do you think that helped you?
I mean, yeah.
Or did it make the set worse?
No, it made it better because I would have been so nervous that I would have stumbled over my whole set. And so, obviously getting drunk every set is not smart, but your first time, it's good to take the edge off. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. I got some laughs. I had, about 3 minutes of prepared material, and then I tried to wing it the rest of the time, which was totally shitty, but it was good enough to get me to come back again and again. And so
you just kept getting up on the open mics.
Yeah, every week.
Have you had hecklers? People say, "Oh, you suck. Get off the stage." I mean, how do you react to that? Just keep going, or what?
I mean, at first, when you're new, you just kind of keep going and pretend almost like they didn't say anything. But eventually, as you get more adept at it, then you start interacting with the crowd, and you can kind of you can trade barbs with people. And your first couple times trading barbs with people, sometimes you lose, but at least you get better at it. So I actually enjoy hecklers now because it makes it almost like an improv moment or a unique moment that you can't really recreate any other show.
And just kind of bounce it back, make them look like the idiot,
sure,
instead of yourself.
Yeah.
So did you listen to a lot of comedy growing up? I mean, as a young child, records at all? Was comedy big in your family, or?
I mean, comedy wasn't super big in my family. I have a pretty serious family, but I used to squirrel away like Bill Cosby, tapes and George Carlin and things like that when I was a kid, and I'd sneak out late at night into the living room, and I'd watch them them do stand up on Carson or even Conan when he was new, and just kind of soaked it all in.
So you mentioned your family. I mean, do they come out to any of your shows now at all?
No.
Are they supportive? No. Do they think you're ridiculous for doing what you do?
No, they don't at all. They're supportive, but I've kind of kept almost kind of church and state type of separation of just. I'm a mission based on stage. There's stuff from my life. There's sex stuff. There's, really dark thoughts that, I've come up with and stuff. And I just really kind of don't want them to see that side. I feel like they'd cringe maybe more than laugh. So.
Did you grow up here in Utah?
Yeah, grew up in Salt Lake.
Salt Lake City. Is it fair to say you grew up Mormon then, or
No. But my family is like they're not religious, but very spiritual. So they don't swear, they don't drink. Stiff upper lip, all that.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
sure.
You got to keep it straight, laced. Have you gotten to tour outside of Utah at all?
Not really. I mean, I've been wanting to more and more. Mostly, I've been focusing on writing. That's really what I've been big into.
Writing like a book or
screenplays?
Really?
Yeah, sketches.
What got you interested in that? I mean, screenplays. I mean, like what kind of screenplays?
I mean, just any kind. I took a screenwriting class at Salt Lake Community College, and that was another one of those it got its hooks in me moments.
Was it just kind of one of those things like, oh, okay, this time I want to take a screenplay class. You didn't really know what you're getting into, and then you just kind of fell in love with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a huge lover of film, and just kind of anything, short films, long films, sketch comedy, just to be able to kind of express yourself in front of a camera. I've just found it to be, comedy is very rewarding. It's immediate. There's a certain jolt that you get of, being able to make people laugh.
What's been the most rewarding thing? You're talking about rewarding there. I'm just kind of curious what What's
Probably
been rewarding for you?
Well, I mean, I've actually done enough stand-up to have it pay some dividends, or I've done it enough to get that kind of rewarding jolt. But screenplays, I love so much because they're so complex, and you can add so much to it. I feel like you cover so much ground in a screenplay, in a movie. A lot more. You can express yourself a lot better than you could in a stand-up set. You can get more out in a script than you could in a 15-minute comedy set.
So, do you want to eventually produce movies? Then is that
Sure.
kind of your end goal of what you would rather do than stand-up, or?
Yeah. Stand-up it's good, but I guess I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it. There's guys like Levi, and there's guys like, Guy Sedell, Barbara. They're very, very good stand-ups. They're strong stand-ups. I do it for the love of stand-up, but I actually would like to make money in film or do that as my job, I guess.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So, on stage, I mean, we talked about hecklers. What about any embarrassing moments? Have you had any just moments that you were just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit.
I had a really brutal night where you kind of, before you go on stage, you watch other comedians to see how the audience is reacting to them. And you kind of see what makes them laugh, and you kind of see what makes them go, oh, to kind of almost test how you think you're going to do when you go up. So there's about 3 comedians that go up ahead of me. They're doing lots of, in my opinion, racist stuff, a lot of anti-Mexican jokes, a lot of sexist stuff, and the audience was just eating it for breakfast. Like, they were just loving it. And so I just went on stage and thought, you're not going to like me and my, jokes about politics or anti-corporate stuff. And so I just kind of went at them. And by the end of the set, they were ready to, grab pitchforks and torches, and I had to get escorted out of the venue.
Seriously?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, the security came in and escorted you out.
Yeah, get out of here. Like, just for your safety. Like,
oh,
leave.
okay.
Yeah.
It was more just concern.
I'm sure they weren't happy that, I pissed the whole audience off, but.
Is there a subject matter that you won't touch, or is it kind of all free game for you?
It's all free game, and it's not necessarily being offended by anything, but I just, I feel like there's a lot of comics I know who cover race and sex and gender stuff and marriage in very smart ways. So there's nothing off limits. It's just the way you approach it. And I feel like if you make yourself the foil, or if you make like something, a big, kind of Goliath, the foil, that's fine. But if you're picking on women or you're picking on minorities and stuff like that, just for the sake of a cheap laugh, then I can't get on board with that. So,
what's been the most challenging thing for you? What's been the hardest thing with getting into stand up? I mean, well, you've been doing it for 5 years, you were saying.
Yeah.
So you've kind of, would you say you're pretty seasoned?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't come around as often as the other guys.
And why is that? Why?
I get bored easily. And so when I do the same venues and I don't have any new jokes that I'm excited to test out, I kind of lose interest a little bit. Or if I'm focusing on writing or I got other things going, I'm not going to come out to an open mic on a Tuesday and spend money on beer and not get paid to do comedy. So it's I've been doing it 5 years, but I've taken like 30 breaks, and so you know what I mean. Like, I've been doing it off and on for 5 years.
So what was like the most challenging? Like I said, like
staying motivated.
Just staying motivated.
Mm-hmm.
What keeps you motivated now?
New material.
Just like new jokes that you write. Or?
Yeah, trying to come up with new material. When you first start stand-up, you're so excited about it, and so new material is just coming at you all the time, and whether or not it's good or not is kind of up to you. But when you get more into it and you've been doing it for a couple years, I feel like it's tougher to come up with material because you have to actively mine for material and say, what is funny, what's going on right now, what observations do I have?
And is it tough to be like, did somebody else write this?
Oh, yeah.
Am I stealing somebody else's joke? I mean,
Absolutely.
Is that a fear that you live with?
Sure. I mean, and I've gotten up and tested jokes and then been like, oh, man, I'm stepping on Bill Burr's bit, or I'm stepping on, that's kind of similar to this.
So how do you know?
Bit.
How do you know when to, like, if somebody wrote it or not? I mean, how do you
go
know?
back and watch it on YouTube, or go back and listen to that album and say, or...
I mean, it's hard to probably, though. I mean, it seems like all the jokes have been said, though.
Sure. And it's just kind of that same thing of having a unique twist on it. Like, when you can boil down 6 different subjects, like marriage, politics. You know what I mean? Things like that. But if you have a unique take on it, or there's something new you're bringing to the table, then it's yours. Even if Cosby touched it, or Carlin did a bunch of jokes about it.
Who are you listening? Do you listen to any comedians now, or who are some of your big inspirations now as comedians? Who do you look up to?
Kyle Kinane is hands down one of the funniest. He's getting really hot right now, but I saw him live at Wise Guys last year, and my sides hurt from laughter. The guy is one of the funniest live comedians I've seen. I still go back and listen to Mitch Hedberg a lot, just sort of the crazy one-liners and weird things about him, and Bill Burr too. So,
what advice, say somebody was interested in getting into stand-up, doing stand-up comedy, what advice would you give them?
Just get up and do it. It's almost like the same thing that people say about, if you prepare to have a kid, you'll never be prepared. Same thing with stand-up. As I spent years going, I'm going to do it someday, I just don't think I'm ready yet. And it's just get up and don't be afraid to suck at it for quite a while.
Do you ever record yourself? When you're on stage?
Absolutely.
Do you think that's helpful?
Yeah. It can be helpful. It can also be a little detrimental if you're too harsh on yourself. Oh, I flubbed that line, when it's really not that big of a deal. But it does help you become tighter if you are.
Was it hard at first to watch yourself listen? People say listening to your own voice, it's tough.
Oh yeah.
Did you just kind of get over it? Or?
Yeah, it's just becoming desensitized to it. Is you just have to cringe for a couple months and then finally you get comfortable with it.
What's your all-time favorite movie? You were talking about writing movies. Back to that a little bit. Just kind of curious what your favorite movie is.
Oh, that's such a tough question because
top three maybe.
Top three? Okay. There's a movie called Narc. It's kind of like a gritty cop drama. It's a little indie. It's got Ray Liotta. It was just it was kind of one of those movies you saw that you're like, I'll never be the same after I've seen it. I didn't know they could make movies like this. I got, the classics like Godfather, Taxi Driver, things like that. Man, it's so tough.
It is tough to kind of narrow it down.
Sure.
At all. What about music? You listen to much music at all, or
not too much? I don't, hate music. That'd be such a weird thing to say. I hate music, but I'm not such a music nerd like I am a film and TV show and stand up nerd.
I got you.
Yeah.
But you grew up here in Salt Lake, right?
Yeah.
What do you like about living here? I'm always asking people, what do you like about Salt Lake? What makes it unique to you? Why haven't you left the city? Why are you still here?
It's got a strange gravitational pull to it, is that as I've become older, I've become a lot more okay with Salt Lake. I feel like all of us in our teens and early 20s are like, I fucking hate this place. It's so terrible. And then you just kind of get a little older, spend enough time here to go, there's awesome people here. There's things to do. It's not super expensive. It's clean. And it's actually, Salt Lake's a lot more liberal than people think from outside Utah. And so I've run into people and, become part of packs with people that click, that get me in so many ways of politically, my hobbies, things like that. And I just love it here.
So what do you think the biggest misconception you say somebody is listening outside of Utah, what do you think the biggest misconception is?
Anytime I go out of state, it's, are you Mormon?
Well, yeah, that's a given.
Do you drink? Are you conservative? I had a lot of people come to the city. I've had friends from out of town visit, and they're just like, Salt Lake's a lot bigger than I thought. Or, I think there's a feeling that we're like bumpkins here, that we still ride like horses and carriages, or you guys got stoplights? That's cool. Like, it's just a...
Oh, I've had that all the time.
Yeah.
They think there's horses and carriages, dirt roads. Oh, wow, this is an actual city. Do you got any favorite eating spots? I always like to talk about that too.
Yeah.
I know that's far from your comedy world,
sure.
But it's just, it's a lot of Salt Lake listeners outside of Salt Lake listen to the show. Where do you like to eat at?
Vertical Diner.
Is that your favorite? They got good food there.
Yeah, there's places.
Are you
go.
vegan or vegetarian?
Vegetarian,
yeah.
But even if I wasn't, I bring non-vegans and vegetarians there, and they love it there.
What's your favorite thing to order from there? Do you have a favorite dish? Or do you just
it's tough because I go there and I really love their avo sub. They have an avocado sub, but I always feel like breakfast when I go there and I get their blueberry pancakes and a side of hash browns.
Yeah.
I don't even like pancakes that much, but their pancakes are amazing. So
even better than your mom's, huh?
Oh yeah, I took my mom there and she's like, these are way better than my pancakes. But they've never let me down. Have you gone to places and been like, oh, most of the time they're good. I've yet to have a
And
bad
then you
meal.
wonder, why do you keep going back?
Right.
But yet their food is garbage.
Right, but at least it's tasty most of the time, or not bad most of the time. But Vertical, I've yet to have a bad meal there.
Yeah. So let's say somebody was listening that might be visiting Salt Lake. Mm-hmm. Is there like an area of town or something that you just say, you got to check this out if you're visiting? Kind of even like some of the comedians that have come in for this festival.
Yeah.
Maybe a recommendation for them.
Sure.
Where would you tell them to go check out?
I mean, the 9th and 9th area is always nice.
Yeah.
Go to Tower and check out that.
Do you hit up a lot of movies at Tower?
Broadway's my place to go, but Tower's definitely
like
good
the
too.
midnight movies. Do they still do the midnight movies on the
I think they
weekends?
do. It's been a while,
Yeah,
but
it's been a while for me. Go see like Goonies or Karate Kid, on the big screen.
It's, Tower, 9th and 9th, go out and scout the avenues, go up and do some hiking. Like, there's a lot of easy trails around, so.
So besides comedy, you're talking about hiking and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you like to do to keep busy?
When I'm not,
writing. Yeah.
Or working my soul-crushing office job, I usually like to get out and do some hiking, competitive drinking, I'm not like, I kind of try and do the jack of all trades thing of just like, I don't hike all the time. I don't do this all the time, but I kind of do a little bit of everything, just not well, I guess.
If you were to win $1 million, let's say you won, well, Utah doesn't have a lottery, but the Idaho lottery, if you won $1 million, what's one of the first things you would buy with that $1 million?
Man, Final Draft. That shit's expensive. I would just get a house, like just some like.
Would you stay here in Salt Lake?
Yeah, I think I would.
Honestly.
Yeah, I love Seattle. I love LA. I love Portland. Those cities, but Salt Lake has just got something. and I got my roots here. So
well, it's easy once you get to know people, your way around. Mm-hmm. It's like, gosh, why move?
Sure,
why move?
And if you have $1 million, you can travel a lot. So just stay here.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate sitting down. I mean, are you on Twitter or Facebook or anything that people can connect with you? Or do you have any sort of links that people listening could find you?
Yeah, you can always hit me up on Facebook, Arthur Carter, or Twitter is The Diplomat.
Do you have like a piece of advice or like a motto just to kind of end your little segment here with?
Oh, man.
Words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom. Well, wow, you're putting me on the spot with these things.
If you don't, then we don't. It doesn't.
Just that kind of echoing the don't be afraid to suck at something at first.
Seriously, I had such a fun time at the SLC Comedy Carnivale, and if you guys were there, you know what I'm talking about. So many great comics were there. I would have loved to sit down with each and every one of them. This was conversations with 4 of them. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Connect with the comedians. I'm going to put all the show notes. That way you can connect on iamsaltlake.com/105. Make sure to just hit up the website at iamsaltlake.com. That way you could check out all of the previous episodes, the previous conversations. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. I'm enjoying it, bringing other people's stories to you. And that way you can find out more about what's going on in this great city of ours. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Mediocre Radio Network. We have a voicemail, 385-202-5926. Give me a call. I'd love to know what you think of the podcast, what you think of a certain episode, if you have any comments, suggestions, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show. That's going to do it. I'm going to be here. I'm here a few times a week. I do have some special episodes. I've been collecting some great conversations, so I might have a few extra episodes here coming out. So make sure to subscribe. That way you guys don't miss a single episode. And until then, my name is Chris Hollifield, and thank you so much for listening to the I Am Salt Lake podcast.